run to O'Reilly's. Everybody in town stocks one of these alternators that I need for the race car, but nobody has one in stock right now except for my local Morris Road. Always in the clutch for the Chevette. I don't know why. They even stock my intake and exhaust manifold gaskets for these things. See, I needed that third ear for mounting. Awesome. Back to the garage. Alright, now hopefully today I'm going to get quite a bit more done. I've got the alternator now, so I should be able to get the bracket done. I still have to wait to get the steel in for the supercharger bracket. But we'll have I have the bracket ready to be cut. I have all the templates done, everything's ready. So that's finished. All I got to do is get the metal and cut it out, put it together. I now have the alternator, and the engine run stand is in enough together. It's together enough that I can mock up the rest of the system on the car. I have to see once I get here back to the house what I've got going on this morning, but I should be in the garage pretty much all day today. With any luck, I'll have some progress. Alright. For the record, I'm not sponsored by Arizona. I love these damn things. And you're going to see them a lot. Every one of my videos and every one of my pictures, guarantee you can probably find one or two of these in the background. Alright, well, now that we're back out here, we're going to start talking a little bit about this. Now this, before we get into mounting it on here, this alternator is roughly about 3 pounds lighter than that alternator. So there is a weight savings. There's also a few differences between these two that make this one much better. Electrically, these are quieter. Both while it's charging, where you can hear it, and electromagnetically. So let's say you wanted to put a fuel injection system on this car. This is a much cleaner running alternator as far as EMF interference than those are. And you're going to notice that I've got a pigtail on here. What this pigtail is just a simple pigtail. You can make them, or you can buy them already done. I suggest buying them already done because they're not charging much more than what the cost of the materials are to do them. But this is a CS to SI conversion pigtail. So this lets this be a plug-in. Your charge wire comes off the post just like it did on that, and this plugs in here. This particular one has the resistor in it because we're using a gauge, because we're using the van gauge, and the van gauge requires a resistor. Otherwise you have to get them up to a certain RPM before they'll turn on. If the resistor's there, that resistor tickles the exciter in here a little bit when it kicks on, and we'll turn this on at an idle. So, something you want to think about. Reason you don't need this pigtail with the resistor in it for one with an idiot light is because the light actually acts as the resistor. So, you can get these pigtails both ways, with or without. This particular setup is for a 1987 to 1992 Cavalier or Beretta or any of the 4-cylinder front-wheel drive models that had that 2-liter or that 2.2 pushrod engine in it. It has 3 mounting tabs, and it's going to let me work out a real short adjustment arm on the inside there, whereas this one only had the 2, This one being for a 2.8 V6, so the mounting ears were way different. This is also only an 80 amp, whereas the one for the 2.8 was a 105 amp, I believe. There's a little bit more difference there, so this won't be as hard to turn. It'll be a little closer to the Chevette's 75 amp alternator. And the pulley is just a matter of swapping it and making the spacing right. So what I'm going to also be doing here later is working out one that is similar to this, but has the straight across pattern. So we can have a upgradable alternator for the stock location over here off the bracket. There's one that has a mounting ear here and straight across, and I believe the distance works out because the fan is smaller in diameter. These can sit closer to the bracket, whereas you have to have the nose spacing here because the fan's so big. These cases had a longer ear right here to accommodate the distance. I think I can sneak one of these in on the stock bracket. Otherwise, I'll come up with some kind of a bracket. But there's a solution for the stock alternators as well, if somebody was to want to go to this, and I'll work that all out, and we'll film that too. So, about to get on here, and then of course we'll go out here and take a look, see what we've been doing. I finally got a little bit of this done. So I've got all the accessories back on. I've got the fuel pump back on. I have to hook the fuel line up to the fuel pump and the carburetor, and then throw the headers on and the belt on, and I think I'm ready to fire this thing. So hopefully maybe later today, depending on how this stuff in the garage goes. I might be able to fill this thing up full of coolant and get it going, because I need to get it out of the way so I can get that one up here, because I'm about to yank the engine out of it. So that's another thing we're going to be doing. This engine, as you guys have noticed, I'm sure in the last video I did with the supercharger stuff, that piston's shot. Now this engine's good, it just suffered a lean out. Apparently it's an old race engine. We got kind of screwed on the deal, but it's fixable, so we're going to fix it. So I got some new pistons, got some new rings, got new gaskets. Going to set up a buck, so when I press the piston wrist pins in, they have a positive stop, because we're going to have to do this the old school way, where I heat the rod with a torch till it turns colors, and then we're going to shove it through. Machine shops are a little backed up at the moment, so I can't just drop them off and have them done, so I'm going to do them here in the garage. But that's something else that's coming up. This is not the engine that is actually getting this setup. This is the engine, and this engine is the one that's going in Cheddar Express out there behind the wagon, which is the race car. So now I'm going to get a little bit of this work done. A couple happy discoveries here is that the 80 amp alternator is much smaller in diameter than the 105 amp even. So I'm going to have a little bit shorter belt, and I'm going to be able to build adjustment here. So you can see where the fan would come in contact with that. So I'm going to run this up, and I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to repurpose this end somewhere in here for belt tension. I'm gonna redo this just enough that we'll be able to adjust it back and forth. Likely just enough to squeeze a belt over the pulleys. Back to work. Alright. The welds are certainly overkill, but it's not going to come apart. Alright, let me get this on the engine. Alright, now, quick tip I wanted to share with you since I'm here. When you're choosing belts for custom applications, there's a few ways you can go about this, but this is my favorite. And if you have a staple gun and some of these cogged belts makes it very easy, because you can set your length and then use the cogs as places to cut. So that every space in between these teeth is a cut line. And it gives you a really accurate length. But when you get to where you've cut the belt and you've got it wrapped around, you know how long it is, and you need to join the two halves, I'll lay the two halves down and then run my stapler through the belt. 3 or 4, if you can space them evenly enough. And this gives a super strong belt that can be accurately measured, and then I can go get a new one this size. Another place always coming in clutch for me. Settlers. They're right around the corner, and they've got all the bolts I ever need. They got what do they get it? So alternator needed 2 spacers and 1 bolt that was 110 millimeters long. I'm going to weld it up to the back side of the bracket. It's a pinch nut. This runs in and just goes tight. This spaces the alternator properly. I'll show you when I get back to the garage. And there we have it. It's adjustable. It's solid. And the bracket really doesn't weigh much. Belt's got plenty of room. Everything's in line. If I need to, I can make a brace bracket that goes from the back of this to one of those holes up there. So I have to shim this, and I think I have to put one more shim in down here on the bottom bolt. And then this is pretty much ready to go. So now it's get this starter welded, these 2 nose cones welded together somehow. And then I've got to get the 1/8 inch plate cut for all these pieces so I can weld them together. So then we can get the supercharger in there, mock it up for its belt and its tensioner. So for right now, I guess that's where we're at. So I guess till next time, keep the shiny side up.